Welcome, everyone. Today we are going to be discussing how to protect the privacy of your employees when utilizing data copy tools. For instance, to copy data from your SAP or SuccessFactors production instance into a test environment. As part of that discussion, we will cover some real-life examples of just how you might utilize a data cloning tool, such as the Spinifex product, Easy Clone. Our objective today will be to provide a very brief introduction of who we are, in case you aren't already familiar with our company, followed by an overview and live demo of our Easy Clone tool. A few key features of the tool that you will be hearing more about today are that it does copy both master data and payroll results from either an SAP on-premise or Employee Central payroll instance, as well as master data that is housed in Employee Central. To protect the privacy of your employees, sensitive data can be scrambled using our pre-delivered default methods or customized methods of your own. We will be focusing on this data privacy requirement as we move through today's presentation. Just a little bit here about our company, Spinifex IT. We are an SAP approved partner and work solely in the SAP and SuccessFactors HCM space. By focusing on those areas for the past 16 years, we have honed our expertise in providing products that increase the productivity of SAP and SuccessFactors customers all over the globe. Our tools enhance the reporting and document generation experience in addition to the cloning process you are going to see illustrated today. As I mentioned, we've been around a little over 16 years. We are actually headquartered in Australia, but support customers all over the globe, including the largest payroll provider in the world, ADP. All in all, over 5 million employees worldwide are touched by our products, and that number is growing every day. So now that you've learned a little more about Spinifex and what we offer, let's talk about the primary reason we are here today. How to use Easy Clone to not just copy your employee data, but also scramble the sensitive parts at the same time, providing a great benefit to your internal team, but without compromising security. In this day and age, it is critical that we protect our employee data, not just from prying eyes, but to meet stringent audit requirements. And even if you don't have our tool, as we discuss the data types and scrambling methods, I think there will be some takeaways for all of you, some ideas to consider if you aren't already using some sort of scrambling protocol. So here we have summarized the main benefits to be gained by using Easy Clone. It does copy both master data as well as payroll results, and the data sources can be an on-premise SAP payroll and HR system, Employee Central payroll, as well as Employee Central for master data. As we've been mentioning, the tool allows the user to scramble the sensitive data, thereby reducing audit risk. Our tool does sit on top of any existing SAP security roles. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if an employee does not otherwise have access to some sort of data in the system, they won't otherwise be able to trick the system into letting them view it by performing a clone. And our last bullet point really drives home a key benefit, and that is it puts the process in the hands of the end users, like the payroll team members, to be able to clone employees without needing to approach the IT department to do a client copy. Here's a great example of how that might work. Your payroll runs, and a particular employee's results just totally blow up. Can't be figured out easily, and at a glance, no one is able to figure out what happened. We've all been there, I know, as someone who used to manage an SAP payroll department. So what do? Well, you lock them out of the payroll run so that you can finish it up and then come back later and try to figure out what's going on with that employee's data. The easiest way to do that is clone the employee down to a sandbox or development system, play with them as needed. If you get them messed up, just reclone and start over. I used to do exactly that many years ago when I was a payroll analyst. The ability to perform the clone without needing IT involvement is really key. Now that example I just walked through, using Clone to help analyze an individual employee's result, is just one way to use the tool. Some more are covered here. Item number 1 starts the discussion by mentioning you can use Clone when testing upgrades or enhancement packs. Because the tool has the flexibility to copy just one employee or many employees, it can be used to create a nice test subset of employees in your sandbox or development system that represent a cross-section of the population from production. Regression testing can then be performed with an assurance that you are mirroring the data from the real world, rather than trying to set up test employees by hiring them into the test system. Not only would that be very time consuming, it's also difficult to obtain a variety of employee types when you do that. And as item 3 notes, this same process basically applies to any change you make in the system for which heavy testing should take place, not just upgrades. As you can imagine, putting the ability to create this clone data in the hands of the end users provides an immediate return on investment. As in my illustration where cloning is used to analyze that one employee's messed up results. Imagine how non-productive it would be if you had to manually reproduce that scenario in a sandbox, using some old test employee that's probably been sitting there since implementation. And the same goes for trying to do a full regression test, but without a good subset of test employees. As noted here, one of our customers actually tracked the time they spent on those activities and reported a 90% reduction in time spent once they started utilizing EasyClone. So now that you've gotten an understanding of the usage of cloning and the benefits to be derived, let's spend a minute digging into the details of how it actually works. With our EasyClone product, there is truly a lot of flexibility regarding just how it can be deployed. Our journey started with our original version, which was built for copying SAP HCM data between on-premise payroll systems. Fast forward a few years, and we see that customers are starting to migrate their data to the cloud. Some of them implement both Employee Central and Employee Central Payroll, moving everything to the cloud, while others take a hybrid approach and keep their payroll on-premise while implementing Employee Central to house the master data. To accommodate those new scenarios, EasyClone was enhanced to copy Employee Central master data at the same time it copies payroll data from either an on-premise payroll system or Employee Central Payroll. Furthermore, plans for future development here at Spinifex will allow copying of isolated Employee Central master data without the need for the corresponding payroll data copying. That development will truly represent cloud-to-cloud cloning. Now, we stated earlier in the webinar that our focus would be data privacy and how the proper cloning tool can respect that. So for our tool, that means using our scrambling capabilities. Some particulars about our scrambling methods are detailed here. For example, sensitive data can be replaced with other values that the customer provides, or the users can allow the system to just randomly replace the original data using the default rules we already have in place for generating those random values. And not only can the data from the payroll system be scrambled, whether that's on-premise or ECP, there are special rules in place with our tool to also scramble the Employee Central master data. Our pre-delivered scrambling will protect those data fields listed here, such as name, gender, address. Plus, as you can see in the gold box, the software was enhanced in late 2018 to allow customers to devise their own Employee Central scramble rules that will allow you to scramble perhaps custom data that you have built into Employee Central. And this slide continues just with a few more of those fields that by default we will scramble for you. Now that you understand the tool, we're going to take a look at a real-life example using EasyClone. In this example, the customer wants to copy 50 employees from their production system down to their test system. so that those 50 can be used to thoroughly test some new payroll configuration before it is transported to production. As we have noted here, and you've heard already today, the business user leading this testing effort can easily select and clone those 50 employees without involving their IT team. And scrambling can be utilized so that employee data privacy won't be compromised. There may be users of the test system that do not normally have access to the production data, and we don't want to accidentally make it available to them by leaving it as recognizable after the clone. So that's the whole purpose of utilizing the scrambling. The steps to perform the clone are easy. The user will simply log into the test payroll system, launch EasyClone, and enter in the selection criteria to determine the subset of 50 desired employees. The user will next simply pick the connection they need to make, in this case to production, and then execute the tool. EasyClone will grab the data from production for each of those 50 employees, scramble it in the process, then update the test system with the new employees. If the customer is also using Employee Central, the tool will use SuccessFactors OData APIs to perform these additional steps, connecting to the production version of Employee Central, pulling and scrambling the data for the identified employees, and writing the data to the test instance of Employee Central. So now that you've heard an awful lot about EasyClone, you know the benefits and how it works. Let's talk about what the interface actually looks like. We all know that even if a tool produces good results, if the interface to use it as the end user is cumbersome, it will be deemed not worth the trouble. I have some screenshots to introduce you to what our execution screens look like, and I think after viewing them, you'll agree with me that they are very user-friendly. So let's go take a look. EasyClone is launched by simply keying in a transaction code. Once that is done, the user will be presented with this screen. Notice it has 5 tabs across the top. To execute the cloning process, the user just starts with tab 1 and continues all through tab 5. And if anything is missed along the way, the system is going to provide a prompt so that it really is very error-proof. The first tab, called Copy Type and illustrated on this slide, allows the user to define the direction of the clone. As in, do they want to start with data from the system they are logged into and copy it out to another system, or vice versa? Go pull the data from that other system and copy it down into the one that they're logged into. We call that push versus pull, and either method is equally effective. The type of data to be copied is also indicated here. Usually it's the first option for employee data because that just includes everything. But sometimes the user may want to just copy over isolated data like just the GL posting documents or just the org structure. So we have options for that as well. Continuing to tab 2, the user selects from the drop-down the RFC connection they need to make so that the two systems can talk to each other. There are also options to set regarding how the newly cloned employees should have their employee numbers generated, either automatically generated by the system or manually designated by the user. Tab 3 has selection screens so that the employees who are going to be cloned can be identified. The users have multiple options for making these selections, from directly entering in the desired employee IDs or selecting them based on common organizational values. Moving on to tab 4, the users can control exactly what data is copied. Options include payroll results, GL posting results, all the PA info types, etc. The desired info types can be manually selected, or the defaulted selections can just be accepted. Tab 4 is also where the decision whether to scramble the data is made. From there, as you can see, we only have one tab left, which is tab 5 to execute the process. To show you that, I'm actually going to run a live example in my demo system for you. So that's where we will head now. So I'm going to navigate over to my SAP system. I'm already logged in. I'm going to launch the Easy Clone tool. I've added the transaction code to my favorites, so I'm just going to launch it from there. What you'll see as the screen refreshes are those 5 tabs that we just walked through on the slides. Now, I didn't mention that as you make entries into the tabs 1 through 4, you can save those entries as a variant and then just pull them up later so you don't have to re-enter them if you're going to execute the same process. So I'm going to go grab a variant that I've created previously. So it will pre-populate all my tabs for me. Okay, so I've loaded in my variant. We're going to jump over to tab 4 because our focus today is data privacy and scrambling. So I want to show you a little bit more on this screen before we actually run this particular clone. So we're over here on tab 4. Notice there's a checkbox to designate whether you want the data to be scrambled or not. A few things about that. We provide a lot of flexibility when you're setting up your Easy Clone tool. The administrator can elect to have that box by default clicked on or off. And as part of that, they can even designate whether users are able to change the default. In other words, you could say, I want the default to be that the box is checked, and I want it grayed out so that no users can uncheck it. So there's flexibility there in how you set up the system. What we've done here in our demo is by default, Scramble is checked to happen. The box is checked, but I have the ability as well to uncheck it if I didn't want to scramble in this particular execution. So in addition to just deciding whether you're going to scramble or not, we have a button over here called Scramble Settings. Now, I did not show you this in any of the slides. If we click on that, we have a few options here that we can go into to give you a little bit more focus on the data privacy. The first one is a tab where you can, if you want, and this is totally optional, supply a first name and or last name that you want your newly created employees to use. If you don't supply anything here, it's just going to use our random values that we generate. For my particular variant, I saved in here that I want my newly created employee to be Jenny Brown. The increment number checkboxes out here, those are there because you have the ability to, say, start with one source employee, but create multiple copies of them. So I could have one employee that I'm creating 10 copies of. If I would like those copies to be named Jenny Brown 1, Jenny Brown 2, Jenny Brown 3, etc., the checkboxes are going to come into play and allow me to do that. So that's one possibility. It's called our Quick Scramble Override. The infotype settings screen. Okay, this gets into a little bit more of the technical view of what's going on with our scrambling. What you see going down the side are the infotypes that we perform data scrambling for. And then next to those are the actual fields. So we've got 2 fields here from infotype 1. You can see on infotype 2, we've got quite a few fields listed. Like here is social security number, PERID. Right, so here you can see the actual fields that are going to be scrambled. If you want to see what particular method is going to be used to derive that scrambled value, that's what this middle column shows you. For example, if I were to look at this row for the surname, technical field name NACHN, if I come over here to the green arrow, it will take me to some details. And what I see here is a whole list of names. This is the list that our system is going to pick from to randomly generate a last name. Now, if this list is fine for you, you don't need to do anything. You're just going to let the system do it. If you wanted to make changes here, there are buttons at the top where you can take away names, you can add rows, put other names in here. So you have the ability, if you had a reason why you needed to change these names, that you could certainly do so. So all of the Scramble rules have that flexibility. Another example might be, let's scroll down a little bit, get to a numeric one. We're going to look at infotype 6. That's your address infotype. Here is zip code. Notice the Scramble rule on zip code says random number fitting size of field. And then if I follow the green arrow, it says number of digits is 5. That's the piece you could change. You could come here and say, no, I want the number of digits to be 9, for example. So this particular field is linked to this particular scrambling method, but you do have the ability to make changes to it should you want. And by the way, this is a good example to point out as well that zip codes vary from country to country. You do have the ability to maintain these scrambling rules on a per country basis so that, the zip code for the US could be 5 digits, for, Canada it could be 6, for example. So that gives you a little bit more information, I think, about the scrambling that's embedded inside of EasyClone. Another little quick thing to point out is in the very first column is a disable checkbox. So if you wanted to scramble for this particular execution, but there was some field that you just didn't want to scramble this time, maybe you didn't want to scramble the zip code, you could check the box and say disable it for this particular execution. And by the way, if you then save into a variant, you could save that option that you just made into your variant. The Employee Central Settings tab allows you to set some particulars about how the Employee Central data is scrambled. Now, we do deliver what's called Scramble Set. That's like the Scramble method, basically. We do deliver pre-delivered versions that for most people are going to work just fine. But if you need to make changes, you have a Manage Scramble Sets button here that will take you to a screen if you need to make changes to the delivered Employee Central scrambling. Why would you do that? Well, you may have a custom Employee Central field that we did not, know about and did not include in our default, and you need to maintain the Scramble set to also include scrambling that field. That would be one possible use case. So that's a little bit more about the scrambling. I hope it kind of gives you an idea, not just our tool, which of course has been, part of our focus today, but, in a broader sense, what you need to be aware of when you are, copying employee data between systems, and you do want to protect that data privacy. I'm going to return us to our slides. Got one last slide here at the bottom. I just want to show you because it has my information on it. Because that does basically bring us to the end of the webinar. What I wanted to point out to you today, the focus on data privacy that I wanted to bring out. Hopefully you have come away with some great ideas. I thank you for joining. If you have any questions, you see my contact email there. Feel free to reach out. Again, thank you for your time and have a great rest of your day.